As some of you know, I traveled earlier this week to be with a community member who moved to Washington State during COVID, and she is making her final transition into this next chapter. She's in hospice now, and I got a chance to spend some time with her and her beloved, and I was reminded of what an honor it is to walk with someone in that transition. What an honor it is in this work that I do, that I get to be with people as they walk home. And what I'm always reminded of, and what I am holding right now for Kelly and for Kim and their family, is that in that moment of really sitting with death, always right alongside with it, is the reminder of aliveness. Like they are not separate occasions. And I'm always reminded in grief and with being with someone who is confronting this greatest transition we make in our lives, that it is the aliveness that moves us into death. And when we are with death and when we are with grief, it is my experience, and it has been my experience walking with others in these times, that it also is this wildly clarifying moment about what matters. That this thing called life, this gift of aliveness, becomes, I think, more real in the contrast of death. And so as we look at this idea of abundant life, I'm just really reminded that it comes closer, I think, to our understanding and to our hearts when we are confronting death. And I think it's one of the reasons why almost all the faith traditions have a practice of some kind that asks you to contemplate your own death. Is because in that contemplation, we are brought closer to our aliveness. And I know for sure that it is that aliveness and being fully alive in this thing called life, that is what abundance is. That is life more abundant. Is bringing our conscious awareness into the experience of aliveness. And as Jerry shared in the reading, it is in this aliveness that we can have the ability to experience this infinite flow of the good. The infinite flow that is ever giving itself to us, living itself as us and through us. And it is in our connection to that experience that fully being alive, that life more abundant happens. The definition of affluence, this is my favorite thing. The definition of affluence is probably different than you think. It has nothing to do with luxury material items. The definition of affluence is abundant flow. And how is it that you and I imagine ourselves to put ourselves in the way of this abundant flow? Well, I'm going to share from the Christian Bible, Matthew 4:4, humanity shall not live by bread alone. Humanity shall not live by bread alone. This idea is very much in alignment with this concept of abundance, which has become co-opted by capitalism, become co-opted by patriarchy, so that we think abundance means we get more stuff. We think prosperity means I get shiny new things and I'm gonna have a fat bank account and I am going to be Richie Richardson, and this is what has been co-opted. by these systems that do not serve our actual divine nature, that do not serve us actually getting in abundant flow and having the experience of actual affluence, a life more abundant. Living by bread alone means, one, like think about it just from a super basic situation. If you just eat bread, you will be malnourished and you will not have an experience of abundance. Yes? Can we all agree about that? If we only live by outer condition, by the material reality, we will also be malnourished. If we live our lives outside in, rather than inside out, we will experience a malnourished life. The very opposite of what we actually want when we seek a life more abundant. And it is in this conscious reach, this conscious grab for getting in the flow, for getting in the way of this infinite supply that Jerry was reading about. When we make that conscious grab for actual nourishment, the place that we get in the way of infinite flow, the place that we experience life more abundantly, the full aliveness that we have been gifted with in this moment is an inside job. We must recognize that what nourishes our spirit, nourishes our soul, is very, very different than material good. It actually doesn't exist out here in the material plane. So when you and I seek for material things to fill this feeling, this longing for aliveness, this longing for good, it's like, as Gabor Mate wrote, who was a psychologist and researcher, it's like feeding a hungry ghost. You cannot satisfy that longing for abundance with material good. It's not a thing. And actually, take a deep breath. Trying to satisfy that longing for a life more abundant through material good is actually participating and contributing to toxic capitalism and patriarchy and white supremacy and keeping those systems in place. That is being complicit and a co-conspirator in the thing that's actually in the way of what we truly long for. And so one of my deep desires, every time I come to this time of the year in the calendar, which is typically a time that we have abundance and prosperity on the calendar in this community, I am like, I have to raise abundance. It's just not my jam. But I really realized this year why it's not my jam. Because in most spiritual communities, we preach a co-opted version of abundance. And I just can't do it. Because what I want for all of us is a life more abundant, an actual lived experience of abundance, an actual lived experience of knowing enoughness in every fiber of your being. Because when you and I consciously understand that there is an infinite supply and that you and I get to be the way of that infinite supply, which means that flow is moving into me and out through me, ever supplied, participating in being supply for others. This is how the world changes. This is how we stop telling a story that is untrue, that there's not enough to go around. This is how we stop telling stories that some people are divinely made and some people are not. Some people are deserving and some people are not. And this is also how we stop in spiritual communities like ours shaming people for their consciousness, which is the thing we do. Well, if you're having an experience of poverty, you must have a scarcity mindset. We do it. But what if you and I actually proclaimed ourselves to be representatives of the Holy Blessed One and to be the way of infinite supply for ourselves and for everyone? Because if we continue to be in conversations and continue to point fingers at what is wrong, and we end there, we have an incomplete process. Much like an incomplete understanding of prosperity and abundance, which every time I sit in grief, I am reminded that it is aliveness that matters. Who gives a shiznit about the stuff? Think about a time in your life where you have lost a loved one, a beloved, and any ridiculousness that was worrying you has now completely left the stage, yes? Because your heart has completely given its way to love and loss. And the only thing that matters was this connection. The only thing that matters in those moments is you are reminded of how important your relationships are. How important it is to show up, heart wide open. Show up as the flow of love on all of your connections. This time of the year is a really good time, actually, to sit with the concept of abundance. You know, we're celebrating all over the Northern Hemisphere our beloveds who have passed. The Day of the Dead is this week. We have, I'm going to say it wrong. I'm sorry, my pagan beloved, Samhain, I don't know how you say it, but we're celebrating that the veil is thin. We're celebrating our ancestors. We're celebrating loss. Why do we do that? Because it brings those of us still with breath in our body more alive to remember our loved ones, to celebrate the connections we've made in this thing called life, to celebrate the lives that have been lived. You know, one of my favorite parts of walking with folks who are facing the end of their life is huge part of that process is celebrating all of the aliveness that has come in their time. You know, I had this amazing conversation this week with Susan, who is in hospice right now, about how exciting it is for her to be able to still have breath in her body and look at her own legacy. And I would say to you, in this process of dying, she's more alive than she's ever been. This is abundant flow. To put ourselves fully in the way of our aliveness, inside out. And this inside out piece also means that we have to be with these material outer circumstances, heart and arms wide open. We can't be in flow and be constricted. We can't actually have a fully alive experience, a life more abundant in a place of constriction and shutdown and numbing and denial and spiritual bypass and blinders. Can't have flow and constriction. You can't have flow and denial. They cannot occupy the same space. And everybody want flow, yes? Beloveds online, put a thumbs up in the chat. You want flow. You want to have the experience of the infinite givingness of the one flowing into you, yes? Which means you got to get in the way of that flow. And you've got to get out of the way, whatever's in the way. Misbelief. Clinging to structures and systems that you think mean success. Undoing this ridiculous myth that there's not enough. Actively engaging yourself with the truth of infinite supply. Ernest Holmes, the founder of our teaching, which is actually the conclusion of the main Science of Mind textbook. He says, to hold one's thoughts steadfastly to the constructive, to that which endures, and to the truth may not be easy in a rapidly changing world. But to the one who makes the attempt, much is guaranteed. So easy isn't a thing. Steadfast, holding my attention to the truth, to truth that is enduring, that is not going to change, whether I choose to pay attention to it or not. And he said, constructive attention. And that the one who makes the attempt, not the one who gets it right all the time and is totally perfect and like sitting in nirvana, but the one who makes the attempt to hold their attention on a truth that is enduring and constructive. This word for me means that the process of abundance, right? It's about being in this flow, being in this infinite supply, this infinite flow that is always moving towards you and always moving through you if you allow it. Which means you participate in constructing more good in the material world. Would somebody like to just be the constructor of good? Can I get an amen? Like, yes, I want to be the constructor of good. What else would I be up to here? Yet how much time and attention do we spend on, oh my God, the world is going to hell in a handbasket. Oh, these people are awful. These people over here. And if they win the election, it's all screwed. Not constructive. Not even a little bit constructive. There's a big difference between denial and ruminating. Anybody ruminate? I'm a ruminator, so I know about it. I'm always having to hold myself like, okay, rumination time done now. Set a timer. I want to share something else from the Science of Mind text. It is only as we allow the divine current to flow through us on and out that we really express life. It is only as we allow the divine current to flow through us on and out that we then begin to actually experience the expression of life. That life more abundant. But if we're just consuming bread, if we're just consuming all of the misunderstanding and belief about what success looks like, about what good actually is, because I guarantee you it is not in a store, then we are not the expression of life that you and I have been divinely appointed to be. We've been divinely appointed with breath in our bodies to be an expression of the Holy Blessed One. And to the one who makes the attempt to hold their attention on that enduring truth, much is guaranteed. This, my friends, is the answer to any experience you may be having right now in your life that looks like lack, that looks like not enough, because there are systems and structures working overtime to keep us convinced that there's not enough, to keep us convinced that some get to have it and some don't. But until you and I actively engage in a constructive, enduring truth of enough, not only enough, infinite supply, enough for everyone, every piece of animated life, now and in the future, if that is the reality you want to see in manifest form in this life, it has to begin with your consciousness and my consciousness. It has to begin with what I believe is possible and what you believe is possible, because we are always co-creating this together. There is not another opportunity to be in separation. The time is now. The time to be experiencing the abundant life is now. The possibility is now. It is not a slow arc to that reality. It's a reality right now if you and I choose to give our attention to that truth. So anybody can guess what your homework is? All right, so I had a teacher early in my 20s when I was first really introduced to metaphysics. And this teacher said that if you could spend 10% of your time shifting your vibration, your frequency, raising your vibration, your frequency through meditation, through contemplation, but if you spent 10% of your time doing that, total game changer to the material plane. Not just my own, but life itself. And so I started to do the math, and I was 27, right? So I was like, am I gonna give that much time to meditation? I don't know about 10%. Like 10%, that's a lot of meditating. Like do the math. So I'm not gonna ask you to do 10%. But I would love for you to aim at it. What I want you to do this week is identify the thoughts that are actually constructive, the beliefs that are an enduring truth. And I want you to make a time, a specific plan. Maybe it's not 2.5 hours. But could it be 24 minutes? Could you give 24 minutes of your day to intentionally placing your knowing, your spirit, all of your juju into constructive, enduring truth? And however that works for you, maybe it's a 24-minute walk where you just remember that God is all there is and there's infinite supply. Maybe it's 24 minutes free from your screens. Maybe you take a little time from Facebook, a little time from Instagram, a little time from TikTok. And put your full attention on enduring truth. Are you in? Yes? All right, let's pray. Because what I know about this enduring truth is that it is always true. God is always good and never missing, in all places, at all times, the beginning, middle, and end, and beyond, in both directions. This good is ever flowing, ever making itself available to you right now. This is an enduring truth. And you and I get to get in the way of this truth. You and I get to get into conscious relationship with this reality. And as I do that, as you do that, as you give your attention, your full conscious attention to this truth, what I know for sure is it changes everything. What I know for sure is this aliveness that you and I long for, this greater experience of abundant life, finds its way into your being because you put your attention on it. because you decide that this is more important than ruminating. This is more important than grievance. This is more important than fear. This is more important than denial and hiding and restricting and constricting yourself into a safe little cocoon. You and I choose to break out this week and give ourselves wholly to the truth. And as you do that, as I do that, I know that it changes my life, it changes your life, it changes life itself. How good it is to know that there is a good in the universe that is ever flowing, and I can use it, and you can use it. I allow that constructive, creative, collaborative truth to move more fully in my being, and I ask you to say yes to the same. And for your yes, I say thank you. Thank you. Anchor this with me in prayer. Amen. And so it is.